Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, Grant McCasland discusses his roster, and the Big 12 wants to stack pesos. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Thanks for joining us once again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Always appreciate being your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts every day. So thank you for that. And maybe I should say, muchas gracias. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, and it is a kind of episode today, Chris, as we kick it off south of the border. Down Mexico way. At least that's what they tell me. I'm having some hard times piecing this together because it's something my brain has truly never conceived of prior to this week. But we're going to get into some hoops on today's episode. We will actually hear from Texas Tech head coach Grant McCasland coming up before we're out of here on current roster, what his roster needs, and some things in between. But, Chris, let's begin with another wild idea from the guy I called the Grand Innovator last week, that one Brett Yormark, Big 12 Conference Commissioner. And I'll let you set the table for us here because there's a wild idea being kicked around as it relates to conference hoops and eventually, I guess, conference football in Mexico. So those words may be something you never considered together, but we will today, man. What's this all about?
Yeah, I don't think this is an idea. I think this was an idea that's now about to be reality. So we have talked about Brett Yormark expanding the footprint outside the box. He's been praised for a lot of these things and trying to, just expand the reach of this league. This one is not being as well received by some of the fan type folks and whatnot that I have seen since it was kind of introduced. But I do think this is happening. I think that I think that you're going to see basketball and football played in Monterrey and Mexico City. I think on a multi-year agreement. Here's what's fascinating to me. Because here, I guess when I see this, here are the questions I have. Who has to give up home games to and as a league, are you? Because the NFL is the same way. The NFL, hey, those teams, hey, you can only put us on so many Thursday nights. Otherwise, we just say no. We're not. That's not fair. I think that the NFL Europe and even in the Mexico City, those games, you wouldn't do that to a team every season. You wouldn't do it to a team twice in the season. I mean, there's some limitations on it. So I'm real curious how that is supposed to look and who is selected. Do they have a choice there? Can they volunteer there? I mean, can they, is this somebody where everybody eventually over a 10-year agreement or a 5-year agreement, everybody's got to do it one time? So it's kind of fair. You see what I'm saying? So that's what that's what I'm kind of wondering about. But at the end of the day, I bet this is attached to some serious revenue. Otherwise, Brett Yormark wouldn't be doing it. And so the flip side is, hey, I'm trying to generate revenue here. I'm trying to get money for the league. And so we can't always be mad or frustrated if that's one of the complaints you're trying to catch up and trying to bridge the gap between the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, I'm not. I'm saying I think schools would be the ones kind of saying we need to make up some of this ground here on some of this revenue gap that we see with payouts and all those things. But maybe Brett Yormark is trying to, figure out some different ways, very outside the box ways of trying to create some revenue there. But Would I be excited about Texas Tech football playing in Mexico City or Monterrey, Mexico? I don't guess I would. I don't think that the general fan base would like see that, but that may not be what this is about. This may be about taking your product and for the local folks there to really sink their teeth in, because I gather that's exactly what happens with the NFL. Whenever the Cowboys go, it's not like everybody leaves, the state of Texas and goes down there and watches. It's just all the residents there just kind of they love American football.
They love the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's unique unto itself, a little bit different where you've already got a built-in massive fan base. I mean, massive as it relates to the Dallas Cowboys, at least, since you gave that example. I don't get it. I'm not so sure about – I guess if you're going to do it, you would do it in those places because they're obvious, Monterrey or Mexico City. But what about Satevo, Babo Noyaba, Satevo racetrack, just right outside of that? I mean, I've seen that on a college football Saturday. Beautiful scene. So you've gotten all the money from the United States of America that is possible to generate. That's got to be the reality if we're doing this to get me on board. Okay, we've squeezed every penny of revenue out of the continental United States, Chris, because there is nothing built in Mexico for Big 12 sports.
No.
I mean, the NFL is stretching their legs to go to London or go to Mexico. And again, that's a way different experience, but they're still stretching their legs a little just to do that. There is no Big 12 or built in anything with the Big 12 in Mexico. I just need a big rundown on why this came to be and what the revenue is generated from. Is it television contracts? Is it Telcel advertising contracts in Mexico? Who's generating this revenue? And anything, I've always felt this way in really any context, Chris. I don't care if you're taking it away to go to Jerry World in Arlington, or you want to go to the Cotton Bowl, or you want to go to Reliance Stadium. If you're taking away home games, I don't like that ever. If you're taking away games from a college city, I don't like that ever to go down somewhere else, especially in a league context. I've kind of made that compromise from a football standpoint because we've had to. All right, I guess some non-conference stuff, your season kickoffs, whatever. Sure. But I hate taking money out of the pockets of those business owners and that local economy for every college town across America when you have something taken out. Lubbock is a relatively big college city comparatively, and I still hate it for us. So would probably go double or triple for a city that's even smaller that you may be plucking something out of. But yeah, I don't really get it. I'm not obviously opposed to spreading your wings, but I would just start where I started. Have you gotten every dollar out of the United States economy? And that's why we have to go elsewhere. I just really like to know how this came about. Who brought this to Brett Yormark's desk, or who called Brett Yormark from Mexico City and was like, is it Carlos Slim or whatever the guy's name is down there? The cell phone guy. Hey man, I've got a ton of money and I've got to put it into something. So do you want to bring a basketball? I have no idea, but I'm skeptical of this. If, Chris, this didn't lead to the loss of a home date of any kind, non-conference or conference, do whatever you want to, I guess. I would be a lot more receptive of it if it wasn't really costing you something locally. And maybe it's not. I think there's some context, obviously, that we're missing. But again, you're not doing this if it's for free. I mean, that right. It would make zero sense. And we've seen, I think Vegas hosted BYU and Notre Dame last year. I think Northwestern has played, they've had some, wasn't there a game in Australia a few years ago? I think involving Cal and Sonny Dykes, as a matter of fact, I think, so we've seen some of this introduced. And hey, what about the Tokyo Bowl?
Yeah,
in Oklahoma State.
The Red Raiders in Oklahoma State for sure. Barry Sanders era, right?
That's
I
right.
think it was right.
He won the Heisman that day, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think, or either that or he'd already won it, and then the game was played at such a weird time. I can't remember how that went down, but I think Notre Dame has tried to play in Dublin, Ireland. I think. Yeah. I mean, there's been some different things. So You're right. I mean, are you having to give up any home games? Is this just kind of like, would be treated like a bowl game or something? Is there a reward for the schools that say, hey man, sure, I'll do it? Is there a benefit to them? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that there needs to be, and what kind of, multi-year agreement are we talking? Because the first basketball game that's been reported that they're looking hard at is Kansas and Houston, is the showcase game to kind of break the seal on this agreement. And ultimately here, so let me skip back to the very beginning here. Yep. What you've got is the conference meetings going on, or some conference meetings going on this week involving the Big 12. They are in Arizona, and I think so. You've got commissioner, you've got athletic directors. I believe, I can't remember. There's a lot of decision makers there as it relates to the league, and so you could get everything from realignment rumors to basketball scheduling kind of stuff to new bowl game tie-ins to new championship game locations. I mean, you can get all kinds of conference business rumors kind of coming out this week. Or you could get a bunch of, hey man, we really didn't decide anything, whatever. So, but that's expect some more conference related news to trickle out this week. But this was the first. It was, I was like, I did a double take. I don't mind telling you that. I'm like, whoa, because he's trying to treat it. I mean, the NBA has kind of looked at these things that we already just talked about. The NFL, I think Major League Baseball has done this. I mean, they did the Field of Dreams game, but I think they've played some games outside of the U.S. And things like that. And so that's what you're looking at here. And I wouldn't have thought it would be financially that beneficial to do it. But I don't know what I don't know, right? I don't know how much money is attached to this, but I guarantee you, again, as I said, you're not doing this for free. And there's probably some revenue that you can tap into that. If you've tapped into all the wells in the continental United States and there's no more, they're dry, just keep, pumping that, but I guess Mexico, maybe there's something there. I don't know. I really don't.
You ever been to Mexico City?
I have not been to various parts of Mexico. And I did watch the game. I think it was a Monday night game between the Cardinals and the Rams, maybe last year. It was the Cardinals and somebody, and it was an NFL game because that's when one of the Cardinals coaches kind of stepped out, and there was some controversy about what he was doing the night before the game, and they fired him and sent him home.
Taking in some of the local entertainment.
Yes,
possibly.
I was watching the Hard Knocks on HBO, and they were following the Cardinals because I was interested because of Cliff and everything. Yeah. And so I remember seeing some background there. And
Kevin Kilgore or something like that, I think.
I think he was the former UTEP head coach.
Sure, he's glad that I've remembered his name too.
Yeah, that's right. Liv Schreiber's Liv Schreiber's doing the PA or the announcing, the narrating on it. He's like, and he's just, it was funny there as he's narrating that part. But,
I just got a lot of questions about this, but it does seem like it's very advanced down the road already. So I'll be curious to see maybe what this looks like when it happens, because it feels like it's going to happen whether you like it or not. But if you have not squeezed every drop available to you revenue-wise as a league out of what you got going on in the USA, I'm not sure why you want to fish elsewhere yet, but maybe I'll be made to understand. Okay, we're going to stick with some hoops coming up dead ahead. We're going to hear from Texas Tech head coach Grant McCasland, who was on the John Rothstein podcast, talking about a couple of different things, but we'll get to some stuff regarding his roster. What's he see with it now, and what needs to be added to it in days, weeks, and months to come before practice begins. We'll get to all that and more coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. NBA postseason on your mind? Now's the perfect time to get in as a new customer with FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app today, and you're going to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet don't bank. You feel me? Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And then you can bet on anything and everything. Money line, point scores, how many fans LeBron gets kicked out in the first quarter, whatever you want, they got it. Plus, FanDuel is even going to let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout. Smoking on that same game parlay pack, my man, only with FanDuel. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets today when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech. Always great to have you along for the ride on the Locked On Podcast Network, coming at you from west of the 100th Meridian, where it's really going down. With Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Wanted to take some time to talk Tech hoops on today's episode before we're done and take a listen to some comments from Red Raider Hoops head coach Grant McCasland, who was on the John Rothstein podcast. Will I get it right on this episode? Odds are long. And I really think this is the first or maybe second time I've heard from Coach McCasland since his introductory press conference. So the sounds from Coach McCasland have been like precious gems to hold on to and pay attention to whenever you get them. It may be the first, but maybe there's another one in there somewhere in between. But let's take a listen to a couple of thoughts, Chris, from Coach McCasland dealing with his roster and what's there currently, what he thinks about it. And then we'll also get to a thought on what he's looking for whenever it comes to additions. But first, the current roster as it stands now and Coach McCasland's thoughts on it. Here is head coach Grant McCasland.
First and foremost, there's been some changes. I think that's the difficult part of this is how you move a program forward that has a lot of expectation. And then also, we've got a really talented roster, but not a lot of people came to Texas Tech to play for our staff, which I think makes it hard. And I think this time of year, what we all try to do is do what's best for each individual player and their families and really love them and listen to them and try to hear their heart and do what's best for them this time of year. And then if we do what's best for them, then I think that's ultimately what's going to be best for our program and for the team. It's been in flux, to be honest. And but I have a lot of confidence in the guys that are going to stay. They've got great experience. We had a young roster. I think that's what's difficult about college basketball, as experience wins. And so I do think that guys got great experience. But we've had some big pieces that have moved on from last year's team that have entered the transfer portal. So we're going to be on that journey of continuing to grow it. But we do love the guys that are returning and excited about the experience they got in the Big 12 last year.
Yeah, and as you look at it, like a snapshot right now, you've lost essentially all your starters minus the Pop Isaacs, who was a regular starter when he was healthy. But you've lost all your starters, and you could make the argument, your top backup-ish or whatever, But you've lost. So think about last year's team to this point. You've lost Kevin O'Banner to graduation. You've lost Jalen Tyson. You've lost Daniel Bacho. You've lost Fardaws. You've lost Davion Harmon. That is the bulk of your scoring and everything like that. And you've lost this group, KJ Allen, another one. You've lost this group and you've replaced them with Darian Williams and Chance McMillan to this point. Okay, to this point. And so it appears that the window is not closed yet. There's still about 10 days left, but it appears the way it is trending, DeMarion Williams, Kerwin Walton, Lamar Washington, Kyron Lindsey, those are players that if we had questions about them, it appears that they are going to stay unless there's a late change of mind. We already know about Pop. We already know about who am I forgetting? Oh, Robert Jennings. Excuse me. Yeah, that's right. And then, but you still have, geez, man, 5 to 7 spots on your roster, to fill if you want. And The next thing you're going to let us hear Coach McCaslin discuss is really, I guess, my first, I don't want to say concern, but I think he's going to tell you and state an obvious here based on what we just talked about on paper about who is gone and who returns.
Yeah, let's take a listen to what Coach McCaslin had to say about addressing needs now moving forward with the roster as it stands, what it's missing, what he's looking for. Here again is Grant McCasland.
I think like anybody's size and physicality in the Big 12. I mean, in order to compete in the Big 12, you better have a very physical offensive and defensive component to you. And you know, I do think there's skill on the roster. I do like the skill level of our guys. I love the heart of our guys. I love the competitiveness of our guys. We're just going to need to continue to add some size and physicality to the roster in order to be able to compete on both sides.
Yeah, man. And Grant knows this. Grant's been in this league. He monitors this league. They desperately need some muscle and toughness and some length. And that's why I think you hear them, associated with or reaching out to like Jimmy Bell at West Virginia, all 285 pounds of him. There's Warren Washington, the Arizona State kid, that is 7 foot. I think that, the UTEP kid is 6'8", 230 that they've talked about. Kendall Weaver, the point guard at UTA, is 6'3". And so you hear about size, but it's not just, like a bunch of 6'11", 7 foot. You want size at every position. And you want longer guards as much as you want, length in the post and on the wing. But yeah, you're getting closer to where, this window, if you will, the portal window will close here in about a week to 10 days. And so anybody that's not in can't get in and still be eligible for next year. But there's still plenty of targets in the portal that haven't decided. But these next 4 weeks is really where you're going to see a lot of visits here and elsewhere, and then decisions made. Because typically, okay, it's not locked, okay, but it typically kids want to get to where they're going to be by the first summer session. You may see some kids go, you know what, I'll worry about second session of summer school. I'll kick the can down and we'll down the road, and we'll wait till early July and second session of summer school. And that's where, because again, you're missing, like in June, not only is there school going on, but there's practices. Like there are on the court practices, and you're in weight, the weight room with your strength coach, all those kinds of things. So,
Chris, I wanted to ask you about just that before you move on. Can you just give me like a general outline of organized activity the summer and then back into the fall semester? Like, when is the month when they are not together at all? Or you mentioned June there, like organized time. Is there ever a time they're not together? I know NCAA wise, maybe they're not, but what does the summer into fall kind of schedule actually look like? Because I think some of us, I know, speaking personally, sometimes I get anxious about things needing to happen, but most of that is only because I don't know when the deadlines actually are. I know, like you're talking about portal windows closing and things like that, but just in general, 10,000 foot view, what does the schedule actually look like this summer for the team and kind of into the fall semester?
Yeah, May and August are the quieter months. June and July are big months for a basketball program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's just basketball. Okay, I think football's got a bit of a different deal, but like this month right now, they can work out with these kids. I think they get like 2 hours a week, I think is right. And I think you get more of that in the summer. These rules have been tweaked and changed. And like, so what you get is 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week, but that's just on the court instruction. That doesn't count when we do a 30 to 45 minute warm up or we, there's ways to stretch that out. It's just meant to be so, but they can get instruction at this time of year. But you're about to hit finals here in a week or so, and then there's some time off before they kind of show back up, and and all that. And it also appears, Cowan, too, is what I'm talking about players and stuff. Drew Steffi appears to still be, headed this way. And so, there's just a lot to still figure out with this roster. But they hit it hard in June and July. Those are where your strength coach and Coach Wright, I guess, and then you're on the court instruction. That's where you really start, getting this thing together. You start install and kind of drilling down on different things that you want to be good at. And then after that second session of summer school, there's kind of you wind down and coaches actually kind of go get away a bit for about 2 weeks in August. And it's always messed my brain up at that point, because that's when like people like you and I in our business are at peak busy, because it's like, you're about to take a vacation. It's like August the 18th, and like football season is like a week away. And it's like, there's just, there's anticipation and chaos and like all kinds of activity going on. And like, you're about to go to Mexico and sit on a beach for a week or something. Yeah, that always messed with my head. But
he may be going to scout a location he's about to play in or something in Mexico.
Touche.
Spin it however you can. This is a business trip, honey.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But that's why I say these are valuable days for a basketball player and for a program in June and July. Hence the reason that I think that it's not a drop dead deadline, but it really is a bookmark of sorts that, by late May, early June, you have your coaching staff in place. You have the bulk of your roster in place. And again, it's not hard and fast. It doesn't mean you have to have everybody hired or a full roster, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. Because there is lots of movement, and timing could be goofy for some kid or some coach or whatever. But I'm just saying that I think we'll get a lot of activity this month, I guess, as that first session of summer school kind of gets closer, I guess is my point. But size desperately needed. You need some toughness, you need some rebounding, you need some presence on the interior. And I don't think, you had 4 bigs last year, Robert Jennings being one of those, and he's the only one left, and Kyron Lindsey really isn't that. He's more of a small forward, could play power forward. He's not a power forward that could play some center, or anything like that. He's athletic. He's got some 6'7" size to him and all that. But yeah, that's why I think you're seeing some of these targets out here have some size and length to them for sure.
And am I tripping? Or I thought Chance McMillan was kind of similar as well, wasn't he?
He's a wing. Yeah, he's 6'6", but he's like 210 or whatever. He's not this isn't somebody that's going to defend. Now, he can rebound and things like that, but I think, no, you're not. I mean, you're right there. He's just more of a
little smaller, 6'4", my bad, but longer than what we saw, I think, on the floor last year.
Yeah, and you may be talking about Darian Williams. Yeah, Chance McMillan is like 6'3"-ish, but Darian Williams is the 6'6" one. He's the kind of the wing player. Chance McMillan is the combo guard. Sorry,
trying to get back to some of those Tim Burton looking characters, like you said, I think Friday or Monday, can touch the window and the wall at the same time when they're standing in the room. You want some of that wingspan.
Miles Cole. Yeah.
Does Miles Cole have any eligibility? It's been a while since we've had a crossover, man.
Joey Hawkins.
Joey Hawkins was the guy. I was trying to remember the name. Joey Hawkins. We haven't tried that again in quite a while, so maybe it's time to have some crossover.
And we could have had it the other way. Marcus Santos Silva could have seen some time on the gridiron, man.
That's true.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, Chris, anything new as far as what you're hearing or what you're feeling from a staff standpoint? Because there is one large dangling participle out there as far as a remaining spot on the staff as an actual assistant and maybe a lead assistant. I don't know, but anything new to discuss as far as where we're sitting here kicking open May?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that you're trying to still add like, you come up with a variety of different titles and things like that, but you're trying to add like an associate head coach, type, I guess, if that makes sense, like, lead assistant. And again, I think there's a variety of roles that you will look to add. But, I will just maintain that based on what I continue to hear, that Ben McCollum's name will be mentioned along this until you have a full staff and go, okay, we're done hiring, and he's not part of it, or until he says, I'm not interested, I'm not going, I'll believe his name is in this mix, just like Grant McCaslin's name was in this mix until somebody was going to tell me he was not, and that never happened.
Yeah.
So that's how I will feel about Ben McCollum. Look, and I've heard a variety of folks say, hey, man, Coach McCollum has turned this down, or he really maintains he wants to be a head coach. Hey, Coach McCaslin's making another run at him. Hey, he's – I've even heard, though, that he would be brought in here to be like an off-the-court role, like a lead analyst, lead recruiter, lead whatever, and so who knows what is true, what is not. It's been all over the map, but his name has not really left the conversation as far as I can tell, and until it does, I'll maintain him being a relevant candidate at some level. I have no idea the role, but again, you will hire many more than just one kind of lead assistant type. You've got a variety of things that you're looking to fill here. This just appears to be Coach McCaslin's pace. I think that, I listened to that podcast and it was kind of, he talked through that, the stretch of weeks it felt like when they were going through the NIT. And, again, I would have had a hard time operating like that or being as disciplined or being as, but I mean, he kind of says after that, one of those first games against Oklahoma State in Stillwater, he's like, that's really when it turned. And I kind of started to, I knew that we were going to, we had a really good chance at the Texas Tech job. And then he's like, and I didn't really get into it with my players or anybody else until 45 minutes after we won the NIT championship. And then so it's just kind of fascinating to hear his version of that. But this just appears to be his pace, man.
Well, hang in there if you are waiting with bated breath, because as Chris has already alluded to, we've got maybe the next 10 days that could feature some action on the player front. And I guess at the same time, any day could feature action on the staff front. But as we just discussed, you view May as a little quieter month from an organized team activity standpoint. So that may be the kind of month where still, again, you're seeing pieces fall into place to then get to some of that organized team activity in June. So not going to be happening necessarily in the next 24 hours, but maybe next week and a half. Very interesting. And this month in general, going to be very interesting. If you're kind of looking for that deadline or that stop point out there where you think, okay, it has to happen, whatever it is, better or worse, has to happen by X date. Not quite there just yet, but could be a month or should be a month of May that does include a lot of movement. And yeah, I don't really know what to make of it, but while you've got this time still available to you, use it as you please. If this is the time where you want to continue to make a run at someone that you've made a run at previously, and now you got to double back, or whatever the case may be, I don't know. Fair enough. I don't know if there's justification in getting real anxious or up in arms just from a fan standpoint, because we haven't seen it happen already, because you're not quite just yet there to that end point when you really need to have things in place. And yeah, there has to be some weighing of options, Chris, in this time with just McCollum as an example, or why would you not have had a resolution already? So I'm sure there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes. We don't know what we don't know, as you so brilliantly said earlier in the program. That is a wise statement. Chris, I do know I had a ball of a time with you here today, man. Appreciate all the insight. Appreciate the perspectives. Are going to need to work on your grito if we do wind up with Big 12 hoops. And that's more Looney Tunes, but either way, same universe. If we do wind up with Big 12 hoops or football in Mexico, wait and find out. Should be interesting. Either way, it's always interesting with Brett Yormark in the mix, I guess. Chris, we'll cover it with you then, man, whenever it goes down. Thanks for the time today.
Sounds good, man. Keep hope alive. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
That's right. And subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.